So I've never done anything like this before, and I'm not very experienced with Zoom either. But when Matt suggested muting all your audio, I said, no, you can come in whenever you want to. And ideally, I would normally have a flip chart handy, and because I like to scribble away, but we'll have to do about that this afternoon. So yes, I'm in Mayfield in Sussex, East Sussex. It's a small parish in a small village. The village is known for its Catholic girls' school just up the road, a very good school up the road. Otherwise, I'm just, yeah, about 10 miles south of Tunbridge Wells. And my subject really is the Bible and the Gospels. So where we are going, and with that, what I would say I'm about is when we think about Lectio Divina, we start with reading, meditation. And I would really say my role is to try and help you read the Gospels as well as possible, and to realize that an awful lot of what we think we're reading, in fact, there's a lot more going on. And one of the themes this afternoon could very easily come out is just how much can be interconnected around once you start taking a passage like the Gospel for this coming Sunday. So that's the starting point, is this Sunday's Gospel, which is continues on from last Sunday after with a gap. But Jane is going to read that now, please.
Okay. The greatest commandment, hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment." I've just lost it. Okay. "And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets, hang on these two commandments."
Thank you. There's a come up on the screen. That's great. Right. Not quite sure what translation Matt is using. What do you know what translation it is, Matt?
I'm really sorry. No, sorry.
Okay, but it's not the Jerusalem Bible that we get on Sunday anyway. You're not being up to date and giving us the English Standard Version, are you?
No, I'm not. No, sorry. I can double check where I got that from.
No, don't worry.
Yes, quite the
right.
Not
so
the
yeah, so this is the basic gospel text which we'll be looking at on Sunday. I think before that, but hiding in the background here, I've mentioned to Matt as well, is Fratelli Tutti, which is the encyclical course that Pope Francis has just issued. And one thing which certainly struck me from Fratelli Tutti is that he quotes the the opening lines of the Constitution on the modern world of the Second Vatican Council, which certainly I think inspired a generation towards the end of the council, wherever it's got to. The joys and the hopes, the griefs and the anxieties of the men of this age, especially those who are poor or in any way afflicted, these are the joys and the hopes, the griefs and the anxieties of the followers of Christ. Indeed, nothing genuinely human fails to raise an echo in their hearts. Sorry, reading badly. I probably need to put my glasses on. But those opening words are quoted by Pope Francis in the encyclical, and shows the extent to which he's really picking up from the Second Vatican Council and a great deal of what he says, and above all that openness to the world around us and to all people around us. Oh, crumbs, somebody's ringing my doorbell. This is there we are. There we are. They'll have to do without me.
They can join us if you want, Patrick. They can join us if you want.
I don't know who it is. Anyway, that had to do about me. If you see me looking through the window, that's because I'm waiting for them to walk away. But yes, Pope Francis uses that phrase then as an opening into the parable of the Good Samaritan, on which he reflects at some length. Has anybody read this encyclical at all? Anybody read it?
No, afraid not.
No?
I've seen it. I'm surprised Johan hasn't.
Yes. But it's like everything Francis writes, it's extremely readable, although quite lengthy. But excuse me, can you do without me for 2 minutes?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I can.
Thank you, Patrick.
Doorbell ringing again.
Oh dear. Such is the reality, hey, of being here on Zoom. We don't get a choice, do we, of who's going to visit us and things like that. I'm lucky because I can tell my wife and children to clear off. But Patrick is there on his own, and he's got the doorbell near him. Oh well. Would you guys like me to share the reading again so you can have a little look at it while Patrick's out? Would that help?
As I've got it, I can go through it again. I lost it halfway through, so this is why I thought, oh, where's it gone?
Yeah, here it is again.
I found it's from the New International Version, the NIV.
Oh, is that a bad place? Is it?
No, not.
I think I just googled
that passage and
just
it's a very popular translation. So,
Patrick, we've Johan has worked out where it's from. The passage.
It's the NIV.
NIV. Oh, tut.
I thought it would be controversial.
Yes. What do you mean? Okay.
I'm afraid Google was my friend here, Patrick. I just googled it and grabbed whatever I found.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the reason I say tut is that the New International Version is very much the Protestant Bible. That would take us in directions we don't want to go in this afternoon. We'll be here all night if I started going down that line. But otherwise, it's a reasonable translation, yes, but it's not Catholic, and it misses out the extra books that we Catholics recognize,
including the letter of St. Jude,
the Old Testament. Anyway, where was I? Yes, well, that was about today's latest crisis. We're having new heating put into the church here, which needs a new electricity meter, and the meter company failed to turn up this morning with a new meter. So I've got a cold congregation for a few more days. But that's as parish life goes. Where was I? Well, I was talking about Fratelli Tutti, wasn't I? Yes. Mm-hmm. And Pope Francis uses that expression, that great phrase there about the joys and the hopes and the anxieties of mankind being those of the followers of Christ. He uses that as the lead in to his reflection on the parable of the Good Samaritan. And this is where I have to be a little bit careful, perhaps, with you. Because the parable of the Good Samaritan is, if you remember the story, is all a well-known story, but it is introduced by a lawyer getting up to disconcert Jesus by asking, what is the greatest commandment? Exactly the same as our Sunday Gospel, but as told by St. Luke in a very different part of his Gospel. And this is the sort of thing I'm pointing out to you, very similar stories. Very similar messages can be used by the evangelists in very different ways. And this one is a very good example. So, so the lead into the Good Samaritan is a lawyer. And interestingly enough, on that side is that unlike the gospel we're looking at the moment, in St. Luke, the lawyer has to answer his own question, which he does. In the end says, who is my neighbor, and off into. So that's one link going in one direction, which anchors us in Fratelli Tutti. And we'll come back to that. We haven't quite forgotten that one. Then going in the other direction, which is where Jane can now read the same episode from Mark's Gospel. I think the very fact that this question of the which is the greatest commandment comes up in all three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, is probably a sign that goes back to Jesus himself. But they are picking it up and using it in rather different ways. So I've given you one very different way of using it, as done by St. Luke. We now have two much more similar ways of using it. Here in both Matthew and Mark, Jesus is in the temple, his final visit to the temple before the Passion begins. He's by and large, in controversy with the Jewish leaders of one sort or another. The Gospel for Sunday mentions Jesus had silenced the Sadducees. But we don't hear about the Sadducees this year. We heard last Sunday, if you remember, about the Pharisees and tax and Caesar and things. Then the readings have missed out the Sadducees, who are talking about the resurrection. And now we have this passage, we have this coming Sunday about the greatest commandment. But we can now listen to it from the Gospel of Mark. And the first question I will ask you is, what is the most obvious difference between, well, at least to my mind, what's the most obvious difference between Matthew and Mark? So Jane would like to go off on with Mark, please.
Okay. The greatest commandment, but one of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked him, "Of all the commandments, which is the most important?" "The most important one," answered Jesus, "is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this: Love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." "Well," said the teacher, the man replied, "you are right in saying that God is one and there is no other but him. To love him with all your heart, with all your understanding, and with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself is more important than all burnt offerings and sacrifices." When Jesus saw that he had answered wisely, he said to him, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." And from then on, no one dared ask him any more questions.
So what, at least to my mind, what is the obvious difference between Mark and Matthew? Everybody being very quiet.
To me, the most obvious is Mark's account is twice as long.
Right. Yes, no, that's a valid point. Yes, okay.
The other thing is Matthew ends by saying all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. And that isn't in Mark.
That is not in Mark. No, good. Okay, carry on. What about the style of the two passages?
I think it's explained more fully.
Yes.
You get a better picture of the scenario.
It's explained better, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But what about the style? The Pharisees got together, one of them tested him with this question, and then the scribe comes along saying, noticing Jesus gave him a good answer, he asked him, what's the difference?
Matthew's account makes it sound a lot more like there's a plot.
Yeah.
Sounds a bit more fighty, doesn't it? Yeah.
Whereas in Mark, the plotters are actually praised by, or one of the plotters is praised by Jesus, saying, "Yes, that's it. You've understood it." Whereas we don't know in Matthew's whether there's no praise for the religious authorities in it.
No, I mean in Matthew it is a confrontation, yet another confrontation and a whole series of confrontations. Whereas in Mark, it's much more of an honest debate, I would say. One of the teachers, the scribe, you would say. Says that Jesus has given a good answer. And, you know, he's saying there, you well said, teacher, you are right in saying that God is one and there is no other. So I would, you know, he's much more someone who is seeking, have a good rabbinic, yeah, I mean, rabbis like arguing and discussing at the best of times. It's the nature of the thing. He's looking for a good discussion, whereas in the first one, they're trying to trap Jesus yet again. And yes, yes, I mean, the NIV, it's probably a bit stronger in our Sunday gospel. They got together and to disconcert him, one of them put a question, teacher, which is the greatest commandment of the law. So there is this much more confrontational atmosphere in Matthew than there is in Mark.
Is Mark, I mean, Mark was meant to, was there a lot of the time, wasn't he? Witnessing this. Is that seen as true? Is he
Not
talking?
Necessarily. I mean, all the Gospels are anonymous
Okay.
documents.
It seems to me like Mark is almost just saying what happened rather than trying to create a, you know, trying to connect the dots. He's just telling the story, and Matthew's connecting dots a bit and saying, look, this is when it all, this is, you know, this is, these guys are really having a go at Jesus.
Yes, yes.
Well, Mark is just like, this is what happened, and Jesus decided to have a conversation about it.
Yes. So we have a yes. As I say, I mean, all the Gospels are all, we don't know who the evangelists are. The Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are much later titles given to them.
Right.
Well, the general understanding today, oops, it's gone. The general understanding today is that Mark is the first of the 4 Gospels to be written. Thank you.